Right, Jamie. How are you, mate?
I'm good, thank you, man. How you doing?
Yeah, very well, very well. I feel like there's been a lot of things going on this last month for you. How's it been? Because you've had like open, uh, influx of new members with another kind of gym closing, all this sort of stuff. Yeah, how's it been navigating a hectic month like that?
Yeah, it's been good. It's good. Obviously, the challenges of sort of gym owner life are you never really know what's gonna come up next. Obviously, you've got stuff that comes in your plan, and when we've got the open, we had age group semi-finals, so we had a Seb and Lily came down for that, and one of our own members, Andy, jumped in on that as well for the 35 to 39. So sort of throwing that into the mix and trying to navigate that around not disrupting a usual gym schedule and making sure everyone's happy and bits. But it's good. It's good. Like, it's awesome. You can't. It,
Is
yeah.
is there anything from going from like head coach at the gym pretty much to co-owner? What what have been like the main kind of changes for you there? And like, is there anything that you didn't expect that's kind of happened as well, maybe?
I'm sat down a lot more. I'm sat down behind a desk a whole lot more than I thought I would be.
How do you feel about
My hips feel like shit.
that?
But luckily, Mary's doing a movement mechanics course, so
You'll fix you.
that's it. Exactly that. I'm just giving her more a really, really good specimen to work with and make it really obvious what's not right and what is.
Did you
Um,
did you kind of realize that when you were going into the like, being a co-owner, did you expect that, or is it one of those where you actually like, I kind of didn't, yeah,
I knew there was going to be changes. Knew there was going to be stuff that I don't think you fully appreciate the amount of stuff that is done behind the scenes until you're actually in it.
yeah,
You can sit and be fully prepared, and I've had conversations with guys that are currently opening up their own spaces and own gyms, and just said, look, be you can get all the best laid plans out, but just be prepared that it's going to take you longer because we can do our best to try and help and stuff, but you're going to have to learn your own way. You're going to have to navigate your own challenges because you're still dealing with people at the end of it.
yeah, yeah,
Um, and because it's a small business, it's deemed a lifestyle business, right? You don't go into it to make millions. You go into it because you love coaching, you love helping people, so you want to create a space where you can do that.
yeah,
And trying to separate that connection of I want to help you and give you the best experience that I can and get you to where you want to be, but also be able to step back and recognize that we've got a team of 8 coaches that some of their livelihood depends on us. So
yeah.
we need to make those decisions that are based for the best for the business, and trying to separate those two can be really difficult sometimes. So I think that's something that I didn't appreciate how hard some of the decisions would have to be.
Yeah. How
Um,
have you managed that? Like, how have you managed to do that?
I've got it wrong sometimes,
Yeah,
like made decisions, got it wrong, and just held hands up. And luckily, um, so Bonnie and Mary, who are co-owners and I run the gym with, we sit and we talk. With like, everything is on the table, and like obviously Mary's my other half, so it's we spend a lot of our time talking about stuff and mulling stuff over, and Bonnie, we live in the gym with Bonnie pretty much anyway, so everything is discussed, and if we do make mistakes, we at least we know how to get a plan with and move forward past it, or just look back at it and go, well, this is what we could have probably done differently.
yeah.
Um,
I
because
listened to
it's
I listened to a really interesting podcast yesterday with Evan Spiegel, who set up Snapchat, and he
yeah,
said they had like a really small of like 2,000 people. They had a really small design team of like 9 people or something, really small. And he said like 99% of the ideas that they come up with are just like not good, but the 1% are. But you don't know like until you're coming up with these ideas or implementing stuff, you actually don't know if it's good or not until you've tried and tested it, and that's
yeah,
that's the best way to learn. It's like
yeah.
try stuff. more.
Yeah,
So you
that's
know.
it. Like when we roll stuff out in the gym, we're obviously going stuff like continually looking at how we run our class timetable to make sure we're classes are busy enough to make sure they're financially viable to run. But
Yeah.
obviously, if they're not financially viable, we then got to we cut down those classes. That could mean that a self-employed coach is all of a sudden lost 3 hours because those classes aren't busy. And it's like,
Hmm.
well, why aren't they busy? Are they not busy because they're at the wrong time, or are they not busy because it's not necessarily that coach's strength? So do we need to spend more time in coaching development to bring them up to speed on certain bits, or do we need to find a different time for them to coach?
Yeah.
And a lot of it's being open and transparent with members as well, and just saying, look, if we made a mistake, hold our hands up and say sorry. We're going to try this. This is the reason why. Um,
Mhm.
this is what we think will happen. If it's wrong, then it's wrong.
Yeah.
We had we, it's just an example. We had our mornings are pretty busy,
Yeah.
so we separated the class, made made it into two classes, with one being half an hour earlier and then one straight off the back of that. So
Hmm.
it was like a 6 a.m. into a 5:30 and a 6:30 a.m. class.
Yeah.
And it meant that the 5:30 a.m. class was super busy, but no one was at the 6:30 a.m. It's
Interesting.
like,
Okay.
but so it obviously hadn't worked to split those two up. So we just put it back to a 6 a.m. in one class. And
Right.
it's the same number of people. They get another half hour in bed. So as a
Yeah.
coach, so everyone's a winner. But we tried it and it didn't work.
Yeah.
I think it's just being afraid not to try stuff and
Yeah, for sure.
understand that you can always, like, it's a mistake, but you can go back on it and say, look, I was wrong. And being okay with being wrong is okay.
Yeah. Yeah. That's kind of really interesting to know as well. I guess we should go into a little bit more about like JST Class.
Yeah,
So you've been programming for JST Class for about 18 months now, I think it is.
yeah.
How's that kind of evolved over the time that you've been doing it, or how's it? Yeah, how do you feel like it's kind of progressed since you've taken it over?
I think a big a big passion of mine is making sure that members get the level of service that they want and they deserve.
Hmm.
Because if you're going to a CrossFit affiliate, um, you're paying for coaching as a service.
Yeah.
So obviously, what we deliver with, we take the majority of classes. It comes from Athlete. Um, so when we take the big chunks and the big building blocks of that and then apply it to class, it's like, how can we then provide the coaches with the best tools and best information to deliver this in the best way so that members get the most value out of that hour?
Hmm. Yeah.
I think that's probably for me the biggest thing that I've certainly tried to bring into class. Um,
How have you tried to do that?
the first thing was just bolstering out the stuff that coaches focus on,
Hmm.
like looking where particular faults or flaws that might occur in specific workouts, bringing up the level of different cues that we can use, whether they're sort of verbal, visual, tactile cues for different things. Um, Looking at how we can introduce the education into transferring movements from one to the next.
Yeah.
So we've got a huge focus on strict pulling strength at the minute in this current phase. It's like, well, actually, they need to be pull-ups are performed in a hollow, not just because it makes it more difficult. Actually, we're spending time in a hollow position, which we see in all of the kipping gymnastics movements.
Yeah.
If we can understand how to maintain that tension, that's going to transfer over to our weightlifting.
Hmm.
So it might reduce the volume of chest to bar pull-ups someone can do initially. Actually, the transfer across the board is greater, so they're going to get more out of that single hour, which will transfer to the rest of their training if they're training for 1 hour a day, 4 times a week,
Yeah.
than just like stop just for a reason other than it may be becoming more difficult.
Yeah. Yeah. That makes
Um,
sense. That makes complete sense. And that's good. That's good.
and
What off the back of that as well, uh what I guess I've kind of switched from why to how, and I'm going to come back to why a little bit again. We'll probably end up flicking between the two a few times, but uh, I guess my first question is, how's it been program in JST Class because like you said, it's loosely based on JST Athlete. So obviously most people when they're writing a class program or a training program, they're doing it from scratch. So talk to us like about that and how you do that because we know from our core team conversations that it's quite difficult. So I feel like let's talk about like why we're doing it and then some of the challenges with doing it, but also some of the benefits as well.
So we obviously with this new phase, we spent quite a lot of time refining stuff and making sure that we knew where we were going with our sort of annual overview and how athletes going to progress.
Yeah.
So it's like picking out the big blocks of what's going to stuff that we can focus on that fills up the majority of the program
Yeah.
that will then again transfer across into the phases later on. So stuff like our raw strength, we're going through back squat thrusters at the minute and hypertrophy strength. So we knew that was something key that probably should focus on.
Yeah.
So we looked at keeping the front squat thrusters in, again, for their transferability across into cleans, into front rack position. And we spend a lot of time, you spend more time towards the competitive side of stuff in that front rack and when you're in a front squat. So front squat strength seemed the better thing to pick on rather than back squats.
Yeah.
You've then got your Olympic weightlifting. So we keep that in terms of positional strength. So we try and hit an Olympic weightlifting variation in strength once to twice a week, either a snatch or a clean, or a jerk, which is we've separated that out. So there's a little bit more time being spent on just the jerk.
Yeah.
Because we don't, again, it's one of the things that you don't necessarily spend a lot of time in class. It's very often sandwiched with a clean, so you don't get to look at the nuances of a jerk in its isolation.
Yeah.
So, and then strict pulling strength as well. If we're looking at strict gymnastic strength currently, so strict pulling strength and the progressions through that, how we can work because it transfers through everything that we do on a bar. So if we can just develop grip strength on a bar, that's going to help toes to bar, pull-ups, chest to bar muscle ups, ring muscle ups, all of those things. Just focusing on strict pulling strength. And I just said, if we can work on it in the correct gymnastic positions, that's going to transfer across into everything else because we're going to have a stronger core. We're going to understand how to create tension through sort of movement as well and maintain those positions. So you kind of pick 2 or 3 main blocks to work with.
Yeah.
And then fill out the rest around it. And obviously we include the whiteboard workout because it's nice that one of the key things for me and for us is that we can still have people who follow Athlete in other gyms. They can, if they're in an area, they can drop into a gym and jump into a JST class workout. Like we had a couple of days ago, we had Sarah come down. She was like, "Oh, I train up at CrossFit Fife," and I was like, "Well, I know Alan at CrossFit Fife because those guys follow JST Class."
Yeah.
He was like, "Oh, well, it snatches at my gym as well, which is convenient." I was like, "Well, actually, we also follow JST Class, so you can jump straight in and you can message all the guys back home and say, 'Oh, well, I beat you all and kicked your ass down here instead of doing the workout.'" Right? So it's having that ability to be able to drop into certain elements and certain parts of the workout, or certain parts of the program is important.
What how's it been though? Kind of trying to incorporate elements of that because, like I said before, taking on JST Class, you will have just written a program from scratch. Like how's it actually been? Yeah, talk to me about the challenges of actually putting it together.
Again, I think it's sometimes it's difficult to get across the fact that less is more.
Yeah. What do you mean by that?
It's like heavy days, for example. We try and program a heavy day once a week, which is there's no metcon, there's no getting sweaty at the end of it. It's actually the intensity comes from we're going to get under a heavy barbell, We're going to spend time in the right positions. We're going to make sure that we've got our pull-up capacity, or we're focusing on making sure that we're getting the most out of our pull-ups. And although there's like potentially maybe even 28 minutes of actual programmed work,
Mm-hmm.
the benefits come from the times understanding the reasons why and making sure we're hitting the right positions and the coaching provided by the coaches.
Yeah.
Because I think it's a lot of class programs that I've seen previously has been like there've been 40, 45, 50 minutes of program work, and like, well, you're not getting any coaching. You're not getting people to move better. You're not getting them to move into the right positions. There's the value is provided in the volume.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's difficult for a lot of people to get away from that mentality of I've got to be blowing out my ass, and I've got to be super sweaty, and I've got to not be able to walk and feel sick at the end of every workout, which for progress very much isn't the case.
Yeah.
And like we know, if you've got people, because we've got people that train 6 days a week, which is one of the reasons we close on a Sunday so that they're not in here every day.
Yeah.
It's like if you've got people training 6 days a week, they can't sustain that level of intensity, nor is it healthy for them to,
Yeah.
nor are they going to progress. So actually being able to get them into understanding that
Mm-hmm.
is huge. I think part of it's also the skill acquisition. Whereas
Yeah.
on like athlete, we've got athlete, and then if people don't necessarily have certain skills, it's cool. Well, you're going to move on to the gymnastics bias. We're going to spend some time going through ring muscle up progressions or handstand push up progressions, and that athlete can then choose to um, focus on that and work on that and take ownership of their own training. But
Yeah.
that we don't necessarily get that opportunity, because if one gym has got a big focus on, oh, well, actually, we're not particularly strong on the weightlifting element because our
Mm-hmm.
coaching team previously has had a really good experience in gymnastics.
Yeah.
So their gymnastics are on point. Everyone, like, you could put 30 or 40% of the population of the gym doing bar muscle ups, which is awesome. But then you've got another gym that's got a weightlifting coach, a specialist weightlifting coach, and they've previously been weightlifting 3 times a week. So their weightlifting's great, but they've had minimal exposure to some of the higher skill gymnastics. So it's trying to make sure that everything's touched on
Yeah.
alongside getting those big blocks in. So we're still hitting the weightlifting, still hitting the strict gymnastics, still hitting the monostructural work that comes in on a Thursday,
Mm-hmm.
but touching on other elements so that you can get the higher skill development in, whilst making sure that everybody feels like they're catered to, so that they're getting an effective workout in at the end of it, if it's a skill acquisition day, or if
Yeah.
they don't necessarily have all of the or a high skill workout comes in on a day when we don't do a technical day. So there's not bar muscle up progressions, for example, but there's bar muscle ups in a workout. Right, what scaling can I put in there that the coach can provide to that an individual, where they're still going to get benefit if it's focusing on the press down of a bar muscle up, or focusing on, we want them to have an upper body pull and push in a movement so that the stimulus is preserved.
Yeah.
Just making sure that not only is that provided, but that's also varied enough that they don't do the same scaling option every single time, because that individual will then never progress.
Yeah. That's when you go through the level of and the depth of stuff that you've got to kind of touch on. It sounds like it's an incredibly difficult thing to actually get to get right, really. We're like, obviously, for the skill acquisition stuff and like improving strength and all that. Uh, like how do you decide the balance of like progressions with like the varied work? Does it kind of stick with those key themes? Does that stay progressional, and then is the other stuff around it varied? What's kind of like your process of like, right, this is number one, this is maybe number two, just so people have like a good idea of, yeah, how you can.
So I think obviously we've going back to not being dictated to by athlete, but trying to align with athlete.
Yeah.
That is now that we've got again, we go back to how we've restructured Athlete. We've got the annual plan. We know how that's going to progress up. Okay, cool. So these 18 weeks, we're going to focus on making sure that we've got really good strict strength, so that it not just for we know that strict strength is good, full stop, but for positional awareness to make sure that there's injury prevention in there, that we can then go into the next phase when there's gymnastics volume and being able to accumulate good volume. We know that we've got the strict strength to hold the positions for a longer period of time. So stuff like that's in there. And whilst we're going through these progressions, probably going to see a lot more of the progressions and the scaling options, or the technique days, for example, where we go through stuff like pistols. We make sure we go through every single phase so that people can take those into workouts. And know that although they're getting a workout in, they're able to focus on an element that is going to help them progress up to the next level. So it's sticking with those key points, but then varying the skills enough that they get touched on occasionally, so that if they do come up in workouts where we're not going through that skill progression, they're still aware of what progression they should be using. And again, trying to go back and look through that. So we still, I'm still a CrossFit purist at heart. I still love, if you look at how CrossFit was programmed, workout of the day, you'd spend an hour going through the progressions of if Fran was programmed, which we know we're looking for people to, obviously you got the elites that are doing it in sub 2, but vast majority of people, it's a 3 to 5 minute workout. You're going to put a time cap in that on 10 minutes. And I guarantee if you put that into a class programming, most people are like, well, how am I going to fill the rest of the hour? But actually, it's like, cool, we're going to warm up. We're going to go through the progressions of a warm up for a thruster, making sure you do the push press, the front squat, put them together, go through the points of performance, and then you do that the same thing for a pull up. Understand that this is what we want, so you now need to scale that to a stimulus, and all of a sudden you've used up 30 minutes of a class just going through those points. So
go on.
So it's trying to balance parts of that and still get. We programmed Kelly a couple of weeks ago, making sure we still touch on some of the things that made people fall in love with CrossFit. Because we've got affiliates and gyms on the program that have been affiliates for 10 plus years. So they've been around as long as JST's been around. They will have started that in the golden days of CrossFit starting up, where people were waiting for the workout of the day to be published. And you just go full send. There's no knowledge of pacing. There's no knowledge of actually strategy in a workout and how we can get a better score by breaking down a higher volume set of movements. So toes to bar, for example, or stuff like that. It's just go full send, try and get the best score you can, and job done, do it again tomorrow.
Obviously, knowing with the program, there is only so much you can do, isn't there? With regards to helping coaches and things like that. But from what you put in the class program, giving that heavy day maybe as an example, how do you help guide a coach to maybe make that session kind of more beneficial is not the right word, but just more engaging, more to help them see, their members see the value in, right, this is why there's just kind of a heavy day with, I don't know, a bit of accessory, and that's kind of it. Do you know what I mean? How do you kind of get that in the programming?
I think, again, it's coming down to little things like pairing people up on a barbell. Because you're going to get more out of those individuals if they're if it is building to a heavy, for example. You're going to get more out of those two individuals who would probably add a little bit more weight on just out of sheer competitiveness. They just want to one up the person next to them. But by doing that, you've then got that coach is able to, they've got more opportunity to coach. If you've got 12 people in a class and you have them all lift at the same time, you've only got one, you might see one or two people maximum Whereas if you stick people in pairs,
Yeah.
you've then got two opportunities to coach. So you can stand at the same barbell, watch one individual, then the other, and then you can get through that class a little bit quicker. So you're going to provide more opportunities for coaching and value there.
Hmm.
Um, it's just certain bits about how you structure the class and how you. It's not necessarily the notes that are put in, but it's creating the opportunities to coach.
Do you put little bits like that in the notes and
Yeah,
stuff?
yeah. So I
Okay.
do try and put various bits in. Again, like pairing people up on barbells is great, particularly for heavy days, because it's not just that. It's like Jamie Boston used to say quite a lot. It was like heavy days are key for community. Like they're the best community building days because you get people around there. You get everyone's got an opportunity to talk, to chat. If you've got people selling their soul on workouts all the time, they're not actually going to develop those connections.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're going through shared suffering together, which is a huge part of it. But like they're not going to get a chance to talk. They're not going to get a chance to make those friendships and build those relationships, which then strengthens the core of the gym.
Hmm.
And like, if you look at best hour of their day, they say that it's if you're unable to, like, if your gym doesn't like a heavy day, then it's not a gym, it's not a programming problem, it's a culture problem,
Okay.
which is a really interesting way to think about it. It's like
Yeah.
trying to educate people on the purpose of heavy days.
Yeah.
If we you take athlete for example, if you've got someone doing 2 sessions a day, one of their sessions is going to be a strength component
Hmm.
because we want all of that intensity to be driven into that strength and
Yeah.
make sure they can hit the desired stimulus, because we know if they're not hitting the minimum effective dose, they're not going to overload, hit progressive overload and get the results that they want. So they'll get to the end of the cycle and hit the same or even less than what they started at.
Yeah. So off the back of that, we've recently been talking about like more opportunities for to help coaches develop, and the lack of opportunities out there as well. Uh, do you want to kind of talk about a few ideas and things that we've kind of got in the pilot in the
Yeah.
pipeline?
Well, I think we've got, so again, a big thing is we ran a coaching development day December
Hmm.
last year back at Cattle Dog, where we had some coaches come down and just sort of talk through coaching philosophy, what they want to do, and understanding how we can scale stuff like from a B swing up to a bar muscle up. But
Yeah. Yeah.
a lot of we've highlighted that a big problem for a lot of gyms is that a lot of coaches are what we call casual coaches, or they coach between 4 to 8 hours a week. It's not a career for them, but they love it. They've got a passion for it, but they just don't necessarily have the time, the understanding, the funds, or various other reasons to be able to push their own development.
Yeah.
Or they're guys that love competing. They coach because they love competing. They get a discounted membership at the gym. So rather than having the opportunity to develop at the weekends, they're away competing, for example.
Yeah.
Um, and it's we've got ideas to run like a full development day where we pick up on certain bits so that it's able to help coaches understand why we program bits and how to preserve stimuluses. And if you've got members who come into your gym that have got injuries, how can you scale a workout appropriately or adapt the workout appropriately so that they can still preserve the stimulus and still seek progression without feeling like they've been isolated or feeling like they shouldn't come into a gym because they're injured. Um,
Okay. What with like casual coaches, what would you say is the main difference between someone who's like a full-time coach and someone that's a casual coach? Like, what's the main kind of discrepancy, I guess, between those two sorts of coaches?
I think it depends from person to person, from gym to gym. I think a lot of, like I said, gym owners, it's hard at the minute, or for the gym owners, uh, because we've had, like the last year we've had affiliate fees go up,
Yeah.
So for some affiliates, they've practically doubled. Most recent budgets come in, business rates relief's gone down for small businesses. So it's gone from 75% to 30% across the board. So it's for some gyms, that could mean our business rates went up nearly £700
It's fucking lot, isn't it?
a month. Like that's a huge outgoing. You've then got national insurance contributions that have gone up. You've then got and minimum wage has gone up. So for a lot of, if a gym has 3, 4 people on payroll, that's going to be quite a significant amount of money that's all of a sudden they've just got to find that goes out every month. So the likelihood is of those guys having people on payroll is very small. So
Yeah.
they're going to a gym owner will probably, some gyms might have a gym owner that coaches more than sort of most of the hours throughout the week, or they don't necessarily run a small gym, so they only need to have a couple of classes in the evening and one in the morning. So they don't have that many hours available for other coaches to take.
Yeah.
So it depends on, like, if you're in a big city, it's obviously very different. I know I think Bristol has between 7 to 9 affiliates just in, and it's a relatively small city.
Yeah.
It's still a city, so it's still got a huge population. But
But
if you look at where we are, we've in Northampton, we've got a population of over 300,000 people. There's one affiliate now in Northampton as a town centre alone. There's only other one as there's a CrossFit gym in Weedon, which is 15 minutes away from us. But again, that's a different population, and
yeah.
we're running 40 plus classes a week. They're running less than us, but they've got a different population, a smaller
Yeah.
population, so they don't necessarily need as many members. They've got a smaller gym. They don't need to have as many coaches.
Yeah.
Um, or they're not incentivized to have as many coaches because it's an expenditure that they don't want to have.
Okay.
Um, so I think a lot of it comes down to that,
Okay.
in just the availability of coaching hours out
So
there. So if you want to bring on, again, if you want to bring on a coach, the chances are they're going to have to work a split shift if you want
yeah.
them on PAYE, which is super antisocial hours, and the hourly rate necessarily isn't great. Whereas they can make more money on doing PT and
Of
doing a
course.
couple of casual coaching hours, or they
Mhm.
can make more money as an online coach
Yeah.
alongside those couple of casual coaching hours. Um,
For the guys who wants to, like, say, you've got some casual coaches and maybe you've got like one, full-time coach. What, as well as like, the actual time of being able to, uh, make the jump to go full-time or the opportunity to go full-time. What would you say is the main difference in like again, skill level's not the right word, but like the almost like competency like element between those two. Do you get what I mean?
yeah, yeah. I think the it's again it's changed recently, but I think the fact that you can coach a CrossFit class just having had a level one.
Yeah.
So you can attend a 2 day course, and the course teaches you to get people to move safely. It teaches you to move effectively and to get a good workout in.
Hmm.
It doesn't necessarily teach you the nuances of programming, all of the nuances of scaling. You've then got the level two, which is more of a coaching course. So if
Yeah.
you're just looking specifically at CrossFit,
Yeah.
that's where you get the level two again. It's another £1,200 that you've got to shell out. And if you are a casual coach doing 4 hours a week, the desire for that there isn't necessarily going to be huge.
Of course.
Um, I think you've got people that have found CrossFit. So like I found CrossFit in 2018, end of 2017, early 2018. But
Mhm.
I'd already been in the coaching industry 5 years.
Yeah.
So like I've had a background in coming from professional sport and playing, and then going and starting out as a PT and then progressing on doing like a sports massage diploma and looking at various other bits, um, to then actually finding this was the closest thing to training in a team environment. So being able to provide that for people meant that I wanted to make that the best. So it was like, right, well, how can I do that personally off my own back?
Of course.
Um, And I think you get those coaches out there that are like, I want to give people the best experience possible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and I think those are the biggest that's the biggest difference is the coaches that deliver the best experience and the ones that care. Um, they have a genuine care for helping people, so they want
Mhm.
to go out and better themselves. They seek guidance from other people. They ask for help. They're not afraid to make mistakes and learn
Mhm.
for the sake of helping people like grow.
Yeah. Because
Um,
the intention's there, isn't it? Like
yeah,
the caring, the you're trying to do it for the right reasons, aren't you?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, exactly that. And I think, and that's not saying speaking bad of any other people or any other coaches that necessarily get into it for different reasons. But I just think that makes that's the difference personally for me. That's the difference between a good coach that can coach a class where everyone has fun, everyone gets a good workout in,
Yeah.
like which ultimately is what you want, regardless of like the standards you set. You want every person to come in to feel like they've had a good workout, they've they've had fun, and like they feel valued and they feel seen in a class environment.
Yeah.
To the ones that genuinely care and they're like, right, well, how can I? Yeah, it's awesome. Like you've got sweaty, but actually, did you move as best as you could?
Yeah.
Probably not. Were you getting through half the workout and then starting to chicken with the bar muscle up? Is that
Hmm.
okay? We're going to bring you down. We're going to go through. It's awesome. You've done 3 sets of 5 bar muscle ups in a workout. Cool. But now you're chicken winging. There's a risk of injury, developing poor movement patterns. Let's get you doing a scaling option for the rest of the workout that's going to help you progress.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
understanding that actually that's where the difference lies.
Okay.
And again, that's just my personal opinion on it. Um, but like I think that's definitely what makes the difference between a good coach and a great coach and someone who and you'll see the difference in it.
So I think we should probably wrap this conversation up now, but uh so opportunities wise for those people who, like you say, don't want to maybe are a bit priced out of doing the level two because it is quite a stretch, like you say, to be able to do it. And I don't know, other courses out there, there's not really that much kind of room for development really with opportunities, I guess.
Yeah, I
You
think
know, did
it's
you? Yeah,
yeah. So unless you're going out and see like there's a few different bits like there's the coach development programs so you can and like, a lot of places will be super happy to help out. Like I know if you message any of the seminar staff, they'll be happy to say yeah, come down, we'll have a look and we'll get you through running through a couple of classes and go through some pointers. But I think one of the things that we're obviously looking at doing is putting together a coaching development day to
yeah,
make sure that people understand, like, okay, well, what's the stimulus of this workout? What's the purpose of it? How can I get people to move safely and effectively? How can I make the most of that person's hour? Can I use the warm up in a better way? Can I coach people through the warm up? Can I make sure that I understand why we're programming the week in the way that we do? Can we deliver a heavy day effectively so that our members see the value in it rather than just it's a workout where I've just lifted some weights. I've not busted my ass and ended up blowing out my hoop.
of course. So, are you saying this is in the pipeline?
It is very much in the pipeline. It is very much in the pipeline. We're just confirming venue and dates, but
Okay.
it's very, very soon to be announced, hopefully.
That's exciting. That sounds good.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm buzzing. I'm super. I love developing coaches and getting people to understand how much of a difference they can make. And I harp on at the guys here about it. They
yeah.
don't necessarily always like it, but it's one of the things that yeah, I'm really proud of how good our coaching team is here.
Okay.
Spend a
That's
lot
good.
of time and place a lot of value on the fact that our coaching is excellent
Okay.
and it's one of the yeah I it's yeah I'm really like I say really proud of that. And it is noted that whenever people drop in there, it's one of the things they do say is that the coaching is excellent, and
you
Yeah,
can't,
so
like,
it's
if people are saying that, you know, you can't, like, can't deny it. Do you know what I mean? It's,
no,
yeah. It's what I mean, and that ultimately that's the main core of any CrossFit, you know, functional fit, well, mainly CrossFit gyms, like of what you offer, isn't it? So
yeah. CrossFit's a coaching service. It's not a you don't come in for it's not an exercise class.
it's true.
You come in to get coached, especially in
Yeah,
a class environment.
yeah,
That's what you want. You want to be coached. You want to be taught to move better, particularly with the level of the skills and the movement that we have. Like you think you throw in people could be throwing 60-kilo barbells around over their head for squat snatches. Like you take Amanda as a workout, ring muscle ups and squat snatches.
of
You've
course.
got to
Yeah.
coach people to move in a way that's safe, so that they feel like they've achieved some of those higher skills that they can then go and tell their friends about.
And ultimately, so people can enjoy life more as well.
Yeah,
Like walk up a hill, you know, with your friends and like
yeah,
not feel gassed and then be absolutely, you know, flogged after or
yeah,
carrying your little nipper in the backpack when you're, you know, yeah,
yeah,
just simple things like that. It does make a big difference. It really
yeah. It's
does.
huge, huge.
Um, so yeah, but yeah, let's wrap this up. Thank you very much for your time today, Jamie. It was yeah,
Thank you,
very insightful. So yeah, cheers, mate.
thank you.